This ability is called Hishtavut, from the word shaveh, which means equal. I think a good term in kind of modern parlance that's borrowed from Buddhism is equanimity. Yeah, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Rebelli. And for those who would like to view the Hebrew text on sefaria.org, please go to the end of this video, and that's where we're going to paste instructions of how to do that.
And this is Parshas Re'eh, the Torah portion of the week, as the book of Deuteronomy continues, as we're winding down. Again, this is Moshe Rabbeinu's, Moses' speech before he passes away. So we begin with the words Re'eh, pay attention, look, see. Anechi nesein lifnechem, bracha uklala. I am presenting with you today the opportunity for blessings or the opportunity for the opposite of blessings, etc. So the simple meaning, of course, would be if you listen to what it says in the book, you get blessed. If you don't listen, you don't get blessed.
That's right.
But of course, according to the Hasidic interpretation, we're going to be learning wonderful life lessons today about very interesting personality traits which we should all try to work on ourselves to attain.
And we should pay attention to that particular verse because the Sfat Emet is going to hook some of his lessons on certain words here. So that's important. Lifnechem, before you. I give it before you. Hayom is an important word. Today has meaning, etc. So we'll come back to that as we're reading through the Sfat Emet. And Sfat Emet starts here with, let me find it, starts here with a midrash and Rashi's interpretation on it about the idea of what you so gently call the opposite of blessing. So it's actually relating to tochachot, to repudiation, or what's the other word for that?
It's called a curse.
It's called a curse.
A pox on you.
Yeah, but klala is a curse. But the midrash is talking about the whole idea when God is rebuking you. So so the rebuke, which is a reality. This is part of it, and the Torah deals with it. Obviously, the Chazal, the sages deal with it, and also the Hasidic sages deal with it. So we'll start with that, and it says, "B'midrash en mafsikim betochachot ve'al takutz." So the midrash is here referring to when the sages says, "Do not stop reading a rebuke in the Torah in the middle. If you're going to read a rebuke, read it all the way." Ve'al takutz lo tikra tochachot kotzin kotzin. So do not stop in the middle, and don't read a rebuke from the Torah in sections. So that's where he starts, and then he says this is going to give us a perspective on the whole idea of the verse in our parsha today, that we receive the bracha, the blessing, and that which is less than a bracha, the curse. Want to add anything to that, Beli?
Just briefly, this medrash is very interesting. The medrash is actually here quoting a Mishna. There's a pretty famous Mishna in Megillah, in the tractate of Megillah. It's talking about when we read the Torah portions. So I mentioned earlier that in a few weeks we're going to be having it. There are two Torah portions where a series of admonishments are listed, and we're coming up to the big one where 98 admonishments are listed. And the rule is that when the person designated to read from the Torah reads this portion, they're telling you don't stop in the middle to call up another guy to the Torah. Push through the whole thing, and they give a reason, so that you would think that to get it over with, but that's not the reason they give. They say don't chop it up because it gives the appearance that you don't want to hear the admonishment of the Father, that you're despising. King Solomon says, don't despise when your father gives you what we call a mussar shmooze.
That's right.
An ethical lesson. So we're going to go in other directions, but that's the basis of this, where this is coming from.
That's right. So we continue. פירוש שבכל יום ניתן לבני ישראל בחירה חדשה. So he's saying, so what's the meaning of I give before you today the blessing and the curse? The word today, that every day the people of Israel, we are being given the choice, a new choice, every day. אם כן לעולם ביד האדם להפוך הרע לטוב. Therefore, it's always in reach, it's always possible for a person to turn bad to good or evil to good. ואין לדבר סוף, and that goes on forever. וזה שנאמר, אין מפסיקין קוצין קוצין, כי אין אחרית וסוף להקללה. And that's why it says, we do not stop the reading. We do not stop the reading, and we do not break it into sections, meaning the reading of admonishment, as you explained before. Because there is no end to the admonishment. As it says elsewhere that in Proverbs that the lie has no legs, or a lie goes nowhere. I mean, I think that would be the. Go ahead.
Right.
Really.
Right. This is a beautiful Gemara in Shabbos where it talks about each letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, all the way to Taf, Saf, and it explains that each letter has an actual meaning. Mm-hmm. And when they get to the letter Shin, the second to last letter, sometimes you see it written with a flat on the bottom, but actually it's a 3. It's like a W, but it's really pointed at the bottom. 3 lines come to a point at the bottom. Shin, the letter Shin, stands for sheker, or lie, because, as you said, a lie can't hold up. Eventually, lies, like we saw yesterday in politics, eventually truth catches up with people. Reality catches up. You can't escape. Lies have no legs, so to speak. So many cultures have this expression. Jewish people also have this expression.
Right.
But what he's saying here is that it has no legs because ultimately it will be transformed, has the potential to be transformed to good.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's what happens with the bracha. So with the klala, what does it mean that ein ladavar sof, שהם מפסיקים קוצים קוצים, כי אין אחרית וסוף להקללה, that there is no end? I don't totally get. It seems the opposite.
Yeah, no, he's saying that there's no end to it because ultimately it's actually what's really happening. We think there's something called a blessing and there's something called a curse. But really what the Sfas Emes is saying is that the curse itself has no actual mitziut. It's like a perversion of the good thing. But it's really all based on our behavior. This is what he's going to get into soon. This is an unbelievable chiddush over here. So ultimately, there's no end to it because ultimately it gets schlepped into the bracha. So just like a lie
has no standing, no legs to stand on, and that turns into good. So does the curse also. It doesn't have. I don't think doesn't have an end, but it doesn't have. It's not sustainable. Is how I hear what he's saying. Although when he says "Ein acharit v'sof leklala," I think he means it's not sustainable.
Yeah, or it becomes
That,
it wasn't real to begin with. It becomes transformed mitapech.
mm-hmm.
It becomes transformed into what it was, into the it reveals itself ultimately as a blessing.
So ki basov mitapech tov, because at the end, the curse always transforms itself into good. And the
That's it.
truth is that there is no evil that comes down from heaven. So that's what you meant by it doesn't have a mitziut. It's not something that is created as such. It's really an appearance of the good that comes down from heaven. So both what we experience as curse is really some kind of variation of the ultimate good that comes down from heaven. Right? That's how I read this.
Yeah.
But anything that flows from heaven is a mix of good and bad. וכל שיש התחדשות, ברכה, נמשך גם כן אחריו הקללה. And every time that blessing is being renewed, and I would say emanates or it comes to us from heaven, בטובו, בכל יום מעשה בראשית. Every moment, every day, Hashem is renewing creation and giving us the blessing of life and and goodness. But every time that happens, it comes mixed. There's a mixture of good and curse, blessing and curse. וזה שנאמר נותן לפניכם. And that's referred to or hinted in the verse when it says that I give before you the blessing and curse. Shakol biad adam. That all is in the power, in the choice of a human being, in the hand, literally, of a human being. Good.
That's right. This is just an unbelievable idea. He'll put a label on this idea, which is a fundamental idea of Chassidut. He'll put a name to this in a moment. Nothing is under your control except for how you react to what is happening. Right. That's what he's getting out. So the bracha and the klala are right in front of you. Right. But how I am understanding what's happening will determine whether or not it's coming down to how I'm experiencing it. Thank you. Yeah. That's what he's getting at over here.
And the meaning of the midrash that do not reject God's rebuke. Takutz Rashi interprets the midrash there as timas. Don't be rejecting what looks like God's rebuke or God's curse, you could say. And himidat hishtavut. This ability is called hishtavut from the word shaveh, which means equal. I think a good term in kind of modern parlance that's borrowed from Buddhism is equanimity.
That's right? It.
That's it. So this is the trait, the human ability to be in equanimity. Whichever way it comes to you, you accept it just as it is.
Correct. And as he says here, this is a very highly praised personality trait, equanimity. Right. So what he's hinting to over here, everyone is possibly aware that the Hasidic movement was founded by a person named Yisrael, whose known as the Baal Shem Tov, the
Right.
owner of the good name. He founded the Hasidic movement.
Exactly.
The Baal Shem Tov says in the very beginning of that book, the very first teachings they bring, is the Baal Shem Tov taught. It says in the Psalms, "Shivisi Hashem lenegdi tamid," I will place Hashem in front of me, before me at all times. And he said Shivisi should be read as Hishtavut, as equanimity. Shivisi Hashem lenegdi samid. Everything is Hashem. Everything is okay. I see everything through my eyes, experiencing it as from God, and therefore I have the trait of equanimity.
Right, and I accept the good and the bad equally, and it's all from heaven. Shemeshabchin mod midazo. This is a very highly regarded trait of a human being. V'hainu lekabel kol hameoraot b'shaveh. And this means to be accepting all occurrences in one's life equally. Ki im ein ha'adam mishtaneh. Because if or when a person does not change one's attitude or mood or emotional state, b'fago'o b'midat hadin, when Hashem, God forbid, is
right.
Yeah,
something
exactly.
Something is visited upon a tragic event. Something unpleasant is visited upon a person.
That's right. Ein la kiyum lehaklala. This is unsustainable. It's not something that has kiyum, has standing. V'cholefet v'ovelt meno, and it will pass.
Yeah.
As I think there's the story from the Gemara Gamzula Tova, right? The person who said, "This too is for good." So v'cholefet v'ovelt mimeno, midat hadin will pass and will move on. But if, God forbid, a person reacts emotionally too much, with excess emotion, this energizes and gives validity to the negativity. It's a very, very profound.
Yeah, man. This is wow. Yeah. This is out of this world, man. Because what he's saying is that it's all we control. We do have the ability to control the actual energy by our reaction to the initial impetus of the negative energy. So we can either strengthen that negative energy or disperse it.
That's right. We I guess we disperse it. How would you say you disperse it? You disperse it by not giving it energy, by not feeding it, by not getting pulled into it, not feeding it with our emotional reaction, and vice versa. This is really this is hard for us Jews, because people complain a lot. This reminds me of people who kvetch are actually really reinforcing that which they're kvetching about. That's what he's saying. Right. I'm sorry to say, but what he's saying is almost anti-Semitic. What would Jews do with that? What's a Jew without complaining? Oy, and this and that.
Right. We can kvetch as long as we don't really mean it.
Exactly.
We're just doing it because it's in our nature.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we do it because we have that kind of special sense of humor. We just have to make everything into a big thing. So.
Right.
So, ein mafsikin, and that's why it says do not stop or interrupt. In the midrash that we read in the beginning, shelo yafsik midvekut bitachon. So this is his big twist here. That when so let me first translate. We should not interrupt our dveikut, our connection to Hashem, and our bitachon, our trust in Hashem. Sheyesh lo b'Hakadosh Baruch Hu, the person has in the Holy One, blessed be. Av she'yavor alav ma she'yavor, no matter what comes to pass. So he's reading the idea of interruption in a whole different way. It's not about you interrupt whether somebody else reads or, or to show that, not to show that you're weak, that you're, but it's a deeper interruption. It's an interruption of one's faith and one's, um, it's an interruption of one's equanimity, basically.
Right. If you let it get, he's saying, don't let it get to you. Don't let the teichachos get to you. Don't let the admonishments get to you because it's fine. It's just fine.
Yeah,
Just become one with it. Let it go its way. Let it come. Hi. Okay. Bye. And then you will take the wind out of its sail,
yeah,
and and after the fact, you will feel better because you will have retained and maintained your equanimity.
yeah.
Because this can make people go mashuga, when people let things get to them. And by the way, this is not a simple thing. This is
No,
maybe the hardest thing
yeah,
in the world, actually,
yeah,
if you
yeah,
think
yeah.
about it. I mean, we've all gone through what we've gone through. It's not a
Yeah.
simple thing.
No,
That's
not at
why
all.
he's drilling it home. This is shemisharchim oid midusu.
Yeah,
This is something you have to really get into and go for it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Well, I think he's saying this is something to aspire to. This is if you
right?
have that, you're sort of like you're really
You
um,
really,
getting somewhere. Yeah,
yeah,
in
yeah.
terms of your spirituality and your development as a person, um, and your faith. It reminds me of this acquaintance a long time ago who was not Jewish, by the way, who was he was a storyteller and an artist, a performer. He made his living by doing programs in schools. He would do large assemblies, hundreds of kids, and it was sort of like theatrical storytelling, and he had a whole gig that he took around, around the area, and made a living, from it. So he told me one day that he came to the space an hour before to to set things up and get ready, and and that the school were so happy that he was coming, and they told him they would have breakfast ready for him, and he's not alone. He has a crew. I think a couple other people, one with a sound man and whatever, So and he came there, and there's no breakfast, and the place was trashed. The stage was full of debris. Apparently, they had some kind of party the night before. This was in a school, in a school building, and he had hundreds of kids to do a program with, and the place was trashed basically. And the caretaker, came in late,
Mm,
and he said that he was boiling inside. He was just riling from the irresponsibility and the disrespect also, to his craft and to what he brings and all that. And he told me, he said, I left it all in my belly. And I talked to the caretaker very quietly, very peacefully. And I said, this is a situation. Caretaker did not know that he was, there's some miscommunication in the administration there. There's something fell between the cracks. And, and he said he talked very calmly and told the guy and was polite and nice to him, even though he wanted to beat him up. you know. And he said to me, Ruben, he said, I knew that the only way to get the guy on my side and to help to make sure that that we can do this was to be generous to him. You know,
mm,
and I remember hearing the story and being very impacted. I was like, wow, this guy really, who's a tzaddik? It's like I'm studying all these things, and he's just like a Shmegegian artist, never reads a word of Torah, and
and he
and
knew it.
and and look at that, he knew it
Right.
intuitively, and I was at that moment I really admired him. I felt like he really had some kind of sha'ar ruach. He had a deep understanding of how not to let negativity get in your way, and it all got resolved. So the caretaker called a few guys and they cleaned it all up quickly. And
That's an interesting story because B'shas Maisa, at the moment of impact, sometimes we have the ability to lose all our teachings and our learnings and our senses, and everything goes out the window because but it's like the training. That's why the training is so important, to read and learn stuff like this and then think about it and then go back and review it and to constantly remind ourselves. Then you have a chance when you come to a situation like that you're able to de-escalate, because you're able to set the ego to the side and step outside yourself at that
yeah,
moment and look
yeah,
at yourself and say, don't go there, just take it easy, don't start yelling,
yeah, yeah.
take it easy, it's nothing. And it's such a hard, difficult thing. So that guy, he was really holding by the level.
No, he really was. And when I look at it today, from especially from the point of view of what Sfat Emet here is saying, is that the heaven were testing him. You
Ah,
know, this is how we get sent these tests. And he chose to. He had a choice. He could have gone mad. But he didn't. He didn't give into it. He made a different choice, and I think that's what
right,
the
right.
Sfat
And by
Emet's
the
talking
way,
about.
that fee, because that's the bracha and the klala, because he that was really lifnei chem for him, and he transformed what could have resulted in a curse, because if he would have let off steam at the guy, who knows what would have happened. The
It
klala
spreads.
has no
Yeah,
kiyum because they didn't feed it the energy.
yeah,
So that and the bracha evolved from that. So that
yeah.
story actually is like really
It's an
illustrating what.
example. Yeah,
It's an
it's an
example.
example.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should all be blessed, and we should all be really be spared the test. Uh, and so, with that, we're gonna conclude. So, thank you everybody for watching the video here with us. If you liked it, why not click the like button and subscribe if you haven't. I mean, that's also another click of the buttons. Costs you nothing and means a lot to us. Thank you very much. Obviously, we'd love to hear your comments below.
Right.
Thank you, Rebelli. So, shalom, everybody. And next week at Wednesday at 9 o'clock, God willing, we'll all be back here for more Torah. Shalom for now. Okay, so you go to the sefaria.org homepage, and then you're going to scroll down like so till you find a section called Chassidut. You click on Chassidut, and once in Chassidut, you scroll down and look for the subtitle that is called Other Chassidut Works. Other Chassidut Works, there it is, and you scroll down in that section, you're going to find the Sfat Emet, and there it is. You click on Sfat Emet, and here you're going to scroll down the contents to the book of Deuteronomy, and there it is. And then the book of Deuteronomy, we're looking for Parshat Re'eh. We'll click on it, and section 4, and the paragraph that's numbered as number 2. That is our paragraph for today. Bamidrash ein mafsikin.